this group. I'm Lily. I'm Izzy.
I'm Hannah.
I'm Sarah.
I'm Charlie.
And I'm Cate.
And what we'll be discussing today is our research on what we like to call moody memories, as we've been looking at the effects of positive and negative mood on memory encoding. So to start, can anyone tell me how this picture makes them feel?
Happy.
Yes, this picture makes me feel happy too. Can anyone tell me how this image makes them feel?
Sad.
Yes, a lot of people feel sad when looking at this image. So previous research conducted by McLean and Kensinger has highlighted that whether an image is positive or negative impacts memory and the details that are remembered of an image. And this research can be applied to studies on mood and emotions as well. Specifically, the broaden and build theory highlights that positive emotions lead individuals to process information with broad and general processing lenses. And this allows individuals to think abstractly and creatively. In contrast, negative emotions lead us to look at and process things with a narrow scope, leading to a less than cognitive scope. So thinking of what we looked at earlier in these two ideas, if you're studying with your dog and you're in a happy mood, you're going to use that broad global processing lens, whereas in contrast, if you're studying with dogs in the kennel and you're in a sad mood, you will be using detailed local processing, lessening your cognitive scope. Based on this previous research, it's clear that we process information in different ways based on our mood state, so we can assume we will remember information differently as well. To build upon this research, we wanted to explore how one's mood during encoding impacts memory recognition, which shockingly no one's looked at this before.
And to investigate this, first we split our participants into two different groups, a positive and a negative group. And for session one, first we had participants complete a mood rating and then have them complete their retrospective, positive induction or happy or negative sad. And this induction included video clips, music, and self-referential memories. After this, they completed another mood rating where then they encoded neutral images, with some of the examples being a blender, socks, or glasses. And they were asked if these images belonged in a kitchen or not. And then at the end of session one, they completed another mood rating. A week later, we had participants return and do another mood rating, and then they had a surprise recognition memory test, where they rated recollection and familiarity of images. Recollection has to deal with specific context of the images, with familiarity just referring to someone having seen the image but not really knowing why or where. And then at the end of session two, there was a final mood rating.
Okay, so our hypothesis, the first part of our hypothesis was that, individuals in the positive mood group are expected to report more familiarity with the images compared to those in the negative group. And then individuals in the negative group are expected to report that they recollect more images compared to the positive group. So an example of this is if you're in a happy mood and you see an image of a blender, you're more likely to remember the time you're drinking a smoothie on the beach with your grandma, compared to if you're in a negative mood or a sad mood and you see an image of a blender, you're more likely to remember that time you're making a smoothie and your blender blew up. You're more likely to remember that the brand of your blender was a Vitamix and that you're making a blueberry banana smoothie. So as can be seen, those in happy moods are more likely to remember broad and overall the gist of an event, versus if you're in a sad mood, you're more likely to remember specific details of an event.
Okay, so here are the results for the mood rating. The graph shows mood at different points of the experiment on the x-axis and mood rating on the y-axis. At arrival, the mood between the participants did not differ. After the mood induction, the positive group had a more positive mood than the negative group. By the end of the experiment, there was still a difference between the positive and the negative group in that the positive group had a more positive mood. But something surprising happened. By the end of session two, the positive group had a more positive mood than the negative group, even though there was no mood induction during the second session. This may be due to transfer-appropriate processing, given that the participants returned to the experimental setting and were viewing stimuli as they had during session one. And here are the results for the memory scoring. The graph shows recollection and familiarity scores on the x-axis. The positive group is shown in yellow, and the negative group is shown in blue. Recollection refers to remembering specific details about a picture you saw earlier, like what the image was, what was happening in it, or how it made you feel. Familiarity, on the other hand, means a picture simply feels familiar. You recognize it, but you can't remember anything specific about when you saw the image or what it was about. After the mood induction, there was no real difference between the positive and the negative group when it came to recollection, meaning that mood didn't seem to affect how well people remembered specific details. But for the positive group scored significantly higher when it came to familiarity than the negative group. This suggests that people in a positive mood remember things more familiarly and are able to recognize things even if it doesn't account for specific details. It also means that you have a general warm feeling when you recognize things. This idea connects to the broaden and build theory, where positive emotions help you think more openly and flexibly. This also makes people rely on big picture general feelings like familiarity rather than focusing on the specific details.
So based on the stimuli that participants are shown, we wanted to examine what emotional regulation tools they utilize. So those in the negative group utilize suppression, in which you're essentially pushing or concealing your emotion. In our study, those who utilize suppression reported having a lower mood score after the end of session 1. This also aligns with our research and studies that whenever they do use suppression, they maintain a negative mood within our induction. This suggests that suppression as a tool isn't effective in keeping their emotions high, and instead actually does not improve it. Those in the positive group utilize reappraisal, which is an emotional regulation tool in which they are essentially reframing or rethinking a situation. For example, you may be very nervous for a presentation, as one right now, and instead of being difficult and dwelling on it, you may think this is a learning experience. This is something that's big and it's actually beneficial. In our study, those who utilized this tool actually reported having higher mood scores after, which those reveals that whenever you use this tool, you have a higher level of positivity.
So, our first hypothesis was supported because we found that the positive group did report more familiarity compared to the negative group. But our second hypothesis was not supported because the negative group did not report more recollection of the images compared to the positive group. You might be asking yourself, why is that? Well, we believe that recollection requires more cognitive resources to find significant differences. So recollection can be harder for both the positive and the negative group because the details are harder than the overall gist of the images. So why is this so important? Mood ratings showed that when in a depressed mood in your bedroom, then going back to your bedroom again will put you back into a depressed mood again. However, our memory test shows that when you the mood that you study in influences the details that you remember about the test. So unless you're doing a creative project, you don't want to be in a good mood when you're studying. But the mood induction on memory influence explained more people report more general and broad knowledge when remembering memories encoded in a positive mood. We'd also really like to thank everybody who helped with the development and the creating of this study, and we thank you all so much for your attention. Thank you. Any questions?
You know I'm going to jump in on memory. I'm guessing you guys looked at false alarms. I'm
Yes.
curious what you found in terms of false alarms with positive and negative mood.
Our memory score was hits minus false alarms, so we did look at false alarms in that context, and that's what gave us our overall memory score. But the false alarm?
We did find that the positive group did have more false alarms than the negative group, which does kind of go in with the gist memory and not having that specific recollection.
How did y'all sample your participants?
So we had a few different methods. We did convenient sampling because we were trying to test as many people as possible, but we also had surveys that we sent out. We went to different classrooms.
Yeah, all of our participants were within 18 to 35 years old from the Wofford College community.
All right. Good morning,